Lily and Jack Sullivan. On the morning of May 2nd, 2025, the sounds of two young children laughing on their swings filled the air at a rural property in Nova Scotia. Their step-grandmother, Janie Mackenzie, lived in another house on the property. She heard them playing before falling back asleep at 8:50 a.m. By the time anyone looked, the swings were already empty. The yard was silent. The dense Nova Scotia forest nearby offered no clues. 11 months have passed, and the mystery remains as thick as the trees. 6-year-old Lily Sullivan was indigenous from the Sipeknek First Nation. When she vanished, she was dressed in a pink sweater, pink pants, and pink boots. She might have been carrying a cream corduroy backpack with strawberries. Her mother remembers her as a girly child who loved soft towels and everything that sparkles. She was a young student at Salt Springs Elementary. Her brother Jack turned 5 that October. He was last seen wearing blue dinosaur boots while clutching a favorite blanket and a toy dinosaur. Adventurous and vocal, he attended the same school in the pre-primary program. Both children were thought to be on the autism spectrum, though they were never formally diagnosed. Their mother, Malaya Brooks Murray, was in her early 20s. She had only moved the family to the Lansdowne area in August of 2023. Her partner, 34-year-old Daniel Robert Martel, served as the children's stepfather. Their biological father had not seen them in 3 years and was quickly cleared by police. A 1-year-old half-sibling was also home on that morning. The family was last seen on camera at a Dollarama on May 1st. By the next morning, the parents claimed they were in the bedroom with the baby. Lily reportedly entered the room several times, while Jack was heard playing in the kitchen. Then, the house went quiet. Neither child could be heard anymore, and the parents began a desperate search of the yard. Martel later claimed he heard a scream in the forest, but police helicopters were not yet in the air. This timeline has raised serious questions about his account. At 10:01 a.m., the mother called 911. Despite the situation, no Amber Alert was ever issued for the children. Police argued there was no evidence of an abduction or a suspect vehicle. That decision was met with intense criticism from the local community. At the height of the search, 160 people used dogs, drones, and helicopters to scour the rugged landscape. By February 2026, searchers had spent 12,000 hours covering 8.5 square kilometers. We have to wonder how two children vanished from their own yard without a trace. Relatives found Lily's pink doll blanket hanging in a tree about 1 kilometer from the home, around 4 p.m. that afternoon. A torn piece of that same blanket was later found in the home's garbage. Martel claimed he used it to stop a draft. Nearby, a child-sized boot print was discovered that matched Lily's size, 11 boots. In September, cadaver dogs covered 40 kilometers but found nothing. Both parents initially passed polygraph tests during the first month of the investigation. A second round of testing later that year focused specifically on the blanket and the relative who found it. More testing was scheduled for March. By January 2026, court documents revealed the mother had accused Martel of physical abuse. Martel denied the claims, and they have not been proven in a court of law. On January 26th, Martel was arrested and charged with assault and forcible confinement involving a different adult. Police were quick to emphasize that these new charges are unrelated to the missing children. Investigators stated they do not have any official suspects yet. Both children remain missing despite over 1,500 tips and dozens of police interviews. The lead sergeant has stated that this case will not be allowed to go cold. A reward of $150,000 remains active. Every scenario is still considered, from a tragic accident in the woods to potential foul play. A pink blanket in a tree, a footprint, and 2 children gone for 11 months. The world is still waiting for a single answer. Now, let's look at another case. This mystery has lasted 25 years, and it started with a cryptic note left behind. Tonda and Diamond Bradley. On the morning of July 6th, 2001, a 10-year-old girl and her 3-year-old sister were alone in their Chicago apartment on South Lake Park Avenue. Their mother had left early for her shift and called the apartment 3 times that morning. Each time, the phone just rang with no answer. When she returned at noon, the apartment was empty and locked. A handwritten note was sitting on the back of the couch. The note claimed the girls had gone to a nearby elementary school and shopping center. The family searched the area for several hours before finally calling the police. Neither girl has been seen since that summer day. 10-year-old Tonda Bradley stood about 4 feet 2 inches tall. She had a distinct burn scar on her left forearm. 3-year-old Diamond had her hair in ponytails with purple holders. Their mother, Tracy, was a single parent raising them in the city. 2 older siblings were staying with their grandmother at the time. Diamond's biological father was later confirmed to be George Washington. A secret was kept hidden for 22 years. Tracy was actually not at home the night before the girls disappeared. She had stayed with George Washington, who drove her straight to work. She assumed the girls were asleep, but nobody knows if they were even there. That admission didn't come to light until 2023, during an investigation discovery special. It directly contradicted Tracy's claims for over 2 decades, revealing the girls were alone much longer. A handwritten note was the only physical evidence left behind. FBI handwriting experts believed a child wrote the message. However, the note's plan for school and shopping didn't match Tonda's usual routine at all. No signs of a break-in. At 8:30 a.m., Ty reportedly left a voicemail about a visitor. Nancy Grace mentioned that voicemail in 2007, but the recording later vanished from all official police files. No one knows how a recording just disappears. Why did Tracy wait 6 hours before calling for help? What happened to that message? It sparked one of the biggest investigations in Chicago's history. Hundreds of officers and agents hit the streets, checking the homes of nearly 100 offenders. They scoured the elementary school, shopping malls, abandoned factories, and even the city sewers. They even searched family property in Wisconsin, but found absolutely no trace of the girls. George Washington, the biological father, became the main person of interest. Witnesses claimed he was seen burning items and buying trash bags. Hairs in his trunk matched the family DNA, but they couldn't prove which daughter they belonged to. He passed a lie detector and was never charged. He even won custody of their son later. Tracy eventually stopped talking to the police and refused to take a polygraph herself. In March 2002, she was arrested after shoving an officer during a heated interrogation. Her attorney stopped the interview. One retired detective publicly stated she believes someone took those girls from the beginning, given the note and lack of forced entry. Through the years, at least 12 women have falsely claimed to be the sisters. A 2023 hoax was disproven by DNA, once again shattering the family's hopes. The case is still active today, with the FBI and local police still searching for answers. Agent Siobhan Johnson calls it one of the longest continuous searches nationwide. An $80,000 reward is currently on the table. Great Aunt Sheila Bradley Smith still leads the fight for justice. A vigil for the 25th anniversary is set for July 6th, 2026. A note, a missing voicemail, and 25 years without a single confirmed sighting. In our next case, 2 sisters vanished from their own home in less than 20 minutes. The family dog was found trapped in a room it would never enter on its own. Annette and Mille Anderson. On the evening of August 1st, 1974, the sisters were left home alone in the Pumpkin Hill neighborhood of Jacksonville. Their mother and sister left around 6 p.m. to help a sick relative for a while. Their father, Jack, was a fisherman delayed at work by a broken boat motor that evening. He called at 7 p.m. and spoke to the older girl. She sounded normal, saying the family dog was just barking at some birds. He promised to be home soon, but when he called back at 7:20, no one answered. He rushed home to find the doors unlocked and the lights off. The house was dead silent. The family dog was strangely locked in a back bedroom. It was a room the dog never entered on its own and had no reason to be in. Someone had put it there. Annette was 11 years old, with blonde hair and blue eyes. Millette was only 6 years old. Both sisters were blonde-haired, blue-eyed students who attended the local Lewis Sheffield Elementary School. They were good kids who never would have walked away with a stranger on their own. Nothing was stolen. There were no signs of a struggle or any damage to the home's doors. The only thing missing was Mille's favorite doll. That one detail has haunted police for 50 years. If the girls left by choice, why would a 6-year-old only take her baby doll? And if they were taken, why would a kidnapper wait? Neighbors recalled seeing a mysterious white car. That car didn't belong to the family and had never been seen at the house before. No one could describe the driver or catch a license plate. It just appeared and then vanished. Aside from the car, there was nothing. No screams, no struggle, and no witnesses to the abduction. How did two girls vanish in under 20 minutes with the dog locked away, leaving nothing behind but a missing baby doll and a haunting mystery? The Jacksonville Sheriff's Office led the search, working closely with national missing persons groups. Despite their efforts, no physical evidence was ever found in the home or the neighborhood. The mysterious white car remained a ghost, despite detectives scouring every inch of the neighborhood. Leads dried up fast. Back then, there were no cameras, no DNA databases, and zero digital forensics. For decades, one name has loomed large over the investigation. Paul John Knowles, the Casanova killer, stalked Jacksonville in 1974 until police killed him. On tape, Knowles confessed to snatching and burying two girls matching the sisters' descriptions near Commonwealth Avenue. Jack Anderson sued the killer's estate, but officials now doubt the confession. Knowles was known for lying to inflate his victim count. This tragedy sits inside a terrifying cluster of disappearances. Several young girls vanished from Jacksonville within just a few months. Jean-Marie Schoen vanished on July 21, 1974. She was never seen again. Virginia Suzanne Helm disappeared on September 27th and was later found dead. Rebecca Ann Green vanished on October 12th. Her remains weren't found for 3 years. The Jacksonville Sheriff's Office has never officially linked these cold cases together. However, so many girls vanishing in one city during a short window has kept investigators and advocates searching for answers for decades. Elizabeth Anderson admits she knows her daughters are gone, but without their remains, she feels they'll never truly rest. No charges, no bodies. Not a single confirmed sighting has been reported in all this time. 50 years on, that white car and a dog locked in the wrong room are the only haunting clues left behind in this case. A missing doll, a displaced dog, and a 20-minute window that still makes no sense today. Now, let's look at another mystery. Two 15-year-old twins vanished in broad daylight, yet police misspelled their names and closed the file within a year. Danette and Jeanette Millbrook. On the afternoon of March 18, 1990, these two 15-year-old twins walked to an Augusta gas station for snacks. They had just finished Sunday church and lunch and were heading to their godfather's place to pick up $20 for bus fare. Around 4:30 p.m., they stopped at the Pump and Shop on the corner of 12th Street and Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, today known as the Augusta Mart. Earlier that day, the girls told their mother something chilling. A man in a white van had been stalking them. The clerk noticed a car outside but couldn't give a good description. The twins walked out of that store and straight into thin air. Danette and Jeanette were 9th graders at Lucy C. Laney High School. They were fraternal twins, born in April 1974. Their mother was Mary Louise Sturgis. Their father, John Millbrook, was known to police and had a criminal record. He passed away in 2021 without ever demanding a real investigation into what happened to his own daughters. Their little sister, Shanta, was only 12 back then. She has spent 35 years of her life fighting for answers the system never intended to provide. What followed their disappearance remains one of the most shocking failures in the history of American missing persons cases. Police told their mother to wait 24 hours before she could file an official report. When the report was finally written, the investigator messed up their names and recorded the wrong birth dates on the paperwork. The girls were instantly labeled as runaways. There was zero evidence for it, and nobody bothered to check if it was true. The case was shut down in 1991, just a year after they vanished. But then, things got even worse. In 1993, the twins were removed from the National Registry after police falsely claimed the girls had been found. They hadn't been found at all. No one verified it. And soon, the original case files were lost forever. For years, the family was fed various lies, like even the completely ridiculous claim that both girls had been adopted out of the foster care system. None of it was true. We have to ask ourselves, how does a case go this wrong? Names misspelled, labeled as runaways, falsely marked as found, and then the entire file just disappears? It is a total systemic failure. 2 suspects emerged over time, but no one was charged. Joseph Patrick Washington, a known local predator, had connections to their father's own social circle. He died in prison in '99 without ever being questioned about what happened to Danette and Jeanette. Another man, Ernest Vaughn, claimed he saw the twins at their father's apartment. He suggested one was hurt and that their remains were likely hidden at the Mary Brothers brickyard. Investigators eventually decided he was describing a completely different case. Chantal says Vaughn was pressured to recant. In 2013, Sheriff Richard Roundtree finally reopened the case after Chantal's years of fighting. In 2017, the Fall Line podcast brought the story to a national audience for the very first time. An Oxygen Network special in 2019 expanded the coverage even further. In 2022, massive donations pushed the reward money to a peak of $50,000. In November 2025, a private investigator reached out with a massive lead. A Louisiana Jane Doe from 1993 might be Jeanette. DNA testing is now happening between Louisiana and Georgia. Together, you and I will wait for the results, which are expected in the coming months. On March 18, 2026, the 36th anniversary, the new Richmond County Sheriff, Eugene Brantley, promised a specialized cold case unit for the twins. In April 2026, the family gathered at the former Pumpkin Shop for a balloon release to mark what would have been the twins' 52nd birthday. Even now, the information regarding the twins remains inaccurate on the Richmond County Sheriff's Office website. Spelling errors in reports, cases closed prematurely, and names wiped from national databases have plagued this investigation for years. Now, pending DNA results might finally provide some closure after 36 long years of silence. Next, you and I are looking at a mother and 3 children who vanished from Mississippi. Their getaway car was found on their own land. Cameron, Kyle, and Rachel Anderson. Around April 11th, 2000, the 4 of them disappeared from the small town of Fulton. Their father, Jeff Anderson, lived in Indiana and kept in close contact with his children through a weekly phone schedule. He called every Saturday like clockwork. Then, one weekend, the phone just kept ringing. When Jeff finally reached the house, a roommate named Jones claimed Leslie had run off in the middle of the night with a truck driver, taking the 3 youngest children. The brown 1981 Chevrolet station wagon she supposedly used to escape was later found abandoned on her very own property. Leslie clearly had not taken that car, and not a soul has heard from any of them in 26 years. Rachel Marie Anderson was just 13 years old at the time. She was born in May 1986. She had blonde hair and blue eyes, marked by a distinct strawberry birthmark on the left side of her face. Cameron Jeffrey C.J. Anderson was 12, with blonde hair and glasses. 9-year-old Kyle Nicholas James Anderson was also blonde, with a distinct scar on his upper lip. All 3 were quiet, happy children who showed no signs that they were planning to leave their lives behind. Their mother, Leslie, had married Jeff back in 1985 while they were living in Wisconsin. Jeff had legally adopted Leslie's 3 older children from her previous marriage, named Chris, Stephanie, and Greg. After their 1997 divorce, Leslie moved the family to Mississippi, eventually settling in the town of Fulton with her younger 4 children and the older siblings. The family used school attendants to find the truth. Rachel was last seen in class on April 5th. Kyle was last seen on the 7th, and Cameron on the 10th. By the 11th, all 4 had disappeared without a trace. No tax filings, no jobs, and no school records ever surfaced again. That roommate's account of a mysterious truck driver has never once been corroborated. No driver was ever found, and the family's only vehicle, that brown station wagon, was sitting on the property for months. If she left on her own, she did it without money or a car. The case is now considered an endangered missing person investigation. Police in Indiana have led the charge on this investigation, working alongside Mississippi agencies to cover every lead in Fulton. No official suspect has ever been publicly named in this case. There have been no DNA breakthroughs, and no confirmed sightings of any of the 4 missing family members. Jeff and his sister Trina refuse to let the world forget, constantly fighting for the answers that have eluded them for decades. In 2022, the family proved the timeline was different than what investigators first believed using school records. The children disappeared one by one over several days, which completely contradicts the idea that they all left together that night. If they all left together, why did each child stop attending school on a different day? This mystery has long captivated regional news coverage. A dedicated Facebook page continues to share updates, hoping someone from Fulton remembers the family from that spring. As of April 2026, this haunting case remains wide open and entirely unresolved. No suspect has ever been identified, and investigators are still waiting for a forensic or DNA breakthrough. For 26 years, not a single person has seen Leslie or her 3 children. They simply vanished without a trace from that small Mississippi town. The car never left the driveway, and their names never appeared in any database. That story about a mysterious truck driver has never been proven. A car left behind, a roommate's unverified story, and 4 lives gone in an instant. Let's turn to the oldest case on our list, a 60-year mystery that has gripped an entire nation. If you have made it this far and enjoy these deep dives into cold cases, hit that subscribe button and press the bell icon. An abandoned car on its own land. A roommate's story that never checked out, and 4 people gone for 26 years. The next case is even older, 60 years and counting, and an entire nation has been searching for answers ever since. The Beaumont children. On Australia Day in 1966, 3 siblings caught a bus from Somerton Park to the beach in Adelaide. Their mother, Nancy, gave them enough money for their bus fare and lunch, fully expecting them home on the noon bus. They never showed up. By late afternoon, their father searched the beach but found no sign of his children. By early evening, the parents had walked into the Glenelg police station. Their children would never be found. 60 years have passed. Both parents died without ever knowing the truth about what happened to their family. Jane Nartare Beaumont was born September 10, 1956. At 9, she was shy and responsible, last seen wearing a pink swimsuit and green shorts. She carried a bag with 3 towels and a copy of Little Women. Her sister, Arna Kathleen, was only 7 years old. Little Arna was talkative and outgoing, wearing a red and white striped one-piece and tan shorts. The youngest sibling was Grant Ellis Beaumont, who was just 4 years old. He wore green shorts over his swimming trunks. Their father, Jim, was a traveling salesman, and their mother was Nancy. They lived at 109 Harding Street. That morning, 5 separate witnesses saw the children with a tall, thin-faced stranger. The man was tanned and athletic, in his mid-30s, wearing navy blue trunks and standing about 6 feet tall. The children appeared relaxed and were laughing, which was very unusual for the shy Jane. The man was even seen drying them with towels. Around noon, Jane entered a bakery on Mosley Street and bought a meat pie with a £1 note. It was a lot of money for a child. The shopkeeper recognized the children and noted they had never actually bought a meat pie before that day. By 12:15 p.m., the man and the 3 children were seen walking away from the beach together. A local postman reported seeing the children walking alone and laughing around 3 p.m., though he later changed his timing to earlier that morning, creating a lasting and confusing ambiguity in the timeline. Who gave a 9-year-old girl that money? And how did 3 happy children vanish so completely? Let's take a closer look together. The search became one of the largest manhunts in the history of Australia. In 1966, a psychic claimed the children were buried under a factory. A warehouse was dug up, but nothing was ever found. Cruel hoax letters in 1968 lured the parents to a fake meeting. Decades later, the writer was found to be a teenage prankster. Over the years, police have investigated dozens of different suspects. The most credible suspect is Harry Phipps, a wealthy factory owner who lived nearby. His own son later claimed that Phipps often gave £1 notes to children, which would perfectly explain that mysterious bakery purchase. He looked exactly like the police sketch. Former employees even claimed he paid them to dig a large hole at his factory. The same weekend, the children disappeared. 3 separate excavations at the factory site yielded nothing. Harry Phipps passed away in 2004. Another suspect was Bevan Spencer von Einem, but he was likely only 19 in 1966, making him too young to be the man. In January 2026, a new investigator pointed to a man named Bill Cotton as a potential person of interest. Cotton had a criminal record and was interviewed back in '66, but police found nothing to prove he was actually involved. In March 2025, a fragment of a child's pelvic bone was found at a different site in the town of Yatina. Forensic testing is still ongoing. Nancy Beaumont died in 2019, and Jim followed in 2023, both never knowing the truth. Neither parent found peace. A $1 million reward for any information regarding the case remains active today. 60 years later, this mystery is still open. Stick with me, we are about to look at a second case with a living suspect. In this next mystery, the primary suspect is still alive. And the last person to ever see those children? Their own stepfather. These are the cases of Monica and Michael Bennett. On a summer evening in June 1989, two teenagers were taken by their stepfather to a nearly empty apartment at the Heritage Complex in Brunswick, Georgia. He told their mother he just needed some help packing. By 8:30 that evening, both children walked up a hill and vanished. They have not been seen since. The stepfather's story contradicts every other witness. Neither child has used their social security number or identity in over 36 years. Monica Renita Bennett was 15 years old at the time. She was 5 feet 5 inches tall. Her brother Michael was 14 and had a distinct scar on his left knee. They were both local students. Their mother was Deborah George, and their stepfather was also Michael's biological father. Monica's biological father lived elsewhere, and their older sister was pregnant at the time. There were 4 younger half-sisters living in the family home. That afternoon, Robert took a crying Michael from his ex-wife's house, claiming he needed help moving out of a vacant apartment. He then picked up Monica. Later that evening, the children had dinner with their aunt at her home across the courtyard. At 8:30 p.m., the aunt walked them out. Robert was waiting there, asking her to help him talk to their mother. While Robert stayed on his phone, Monica and Michael wandered up a hill and vanished from view. No one, except their stepfather, would ever report seeing those children alive again. Police records show Robert called Deborah at 8:30 p.m., claiming the kids were already gone. This contradicted the aunt's story that they had just walked off. Later, Robert drove his younger daughters through the complex at a crawl, never once calling out for the missing pair. The younger kids later remembered seeing 2 full trash bags by the door and a bed stripped of its sheets. Robert insisted those bags just held the children's clothes and belongings. Why would a man claiming his kids just wandered off drive slowly without calling their names, all while keeping trash bags and stripped sheets by the door? Investigators initially took the parents at their word, labeling the children runaways. They used rumors about Monica's alleged boyfriend to justify their lack of action in the investigation. No real investigation happened until the early 2000s, when the case was finally upgraded to endangered missing persons. To the rest of the family, Robert L. George has been the main suspect since day one. In early 1989, Monica told Sheila that Robert was abusing her. Sheila immediately took the girl to a school counselor and then to the police. Deborah simply ignored the accusations. Michael allegedly caught them in the act, causing a temporary split between the couple. Later, Robert gave 2 completely different stories about the day the children vanished. Deborah's mother called him a controlling bully. Only days after the kids went missing, Robert's car vanished too, and it has never been found. The couple moved to Alabama soon after. Neither child took any money or clothes. It was as if they had both been wiped from existence. Robert was never charged. Deborah was not treated as a suspect, though many criticized her for ignoring the abuse allegations against her husband. In 2017, the Fall Line podcast dedicated 4 episodes to the story, finally bringing this cold case to a national audience. Other true crime shows like Our Black Girls have shared the story, yet no rewards have ever been posted. There have been no DNA breakthroughs or sightings. Their sister, Sheila, still fights for justice from her home in Georgia. The strongest theory is that Robert George killed both children inside that apartment, disposed of their remains, and then made his car disappear forever. He is likely still alive, 36 years later, and no one has ever been held accountable for their disappearance. Trash bags by the entrance, stripped sheets, a missing car, and a stepfather who walked away without a single charge. Now, let's look at another tragedy. 2 sisters were left with a family friend, but within 2 weeks, both vanished from his apartment. Josephine and Joyce Cogburn. On October 2nd, 1983, the sisters disappeared from an apartment on East Brook Street in Norman, Oklahoma. They had been staying with a trusted family friend for about 2 weeks, following some trouble at home. The friend reported them missing that night, claiming they left for the library and never returned. All of their possessions were left in the apartment. No friend or classmate ever heard from them again. Since then, the apartment building has been torn down, The man who was responsible for their safety refused to answer a single question for the rest of his life. Josephine Cogburn was 16 years old, 5'1", with brown hair and blue eyes. She had pierced ears and a distinctive tattoo of the word vet near her toes. Joyce Irene Cogburn was born on May 10, 1968. She was 15, 5'3", with strawberry blonde hair and brown eyes. The sisters were known to everyone as Vet and Joyce. Their father was killed in a car accident while their mother was pregnant with Joyce. She raised them alone, working as a bartender while attending nursing school. Their older sister, Rosetta, has been searching for them for 40 years. She had been raised separately by their maternal grandmother. After their father passed away, the girls were raised by their paternal grandparents. Their mother remarried in 1975, but soon kicked the man out after abuse allegations. By 1983, the girls were struggling with behavioral issues in Broken Bow. Their mother eventually signed over temporary custody to a longtime friend of the family. This man, known publicly only as BJS, had been a friend for 13 years. BJS took the sisters to his Norman apartment. On October 2nd, he claimed he was out all day while the girls walked to the library. When he got back, they were nowhere to be found. He called the police, even though all their clothes and gear were still inside. Norman police initially called them runaways, a narrative that BJS himself encouraged from the start. Years went by without a word, prompting police to change the case to foul play and eventually non-family abduction. Why would two sisters leave without a single belonging and never reach out to their mother or grandmother again? It just doesn't add up. In mid-September, just 2 weeks before they vanished, Josephine told her sister Rosetta something deeply disturbing. Joyce was allegedly in an inappropriate relationship with BJS, but she had a new boyfriend and wanted to leave the older man behind. Rosetta has held the same theory for over 40 years. She believes BJS killed both sisters in a jealous rage when Joyce tried to leave. Since then, he has refused to speak to the family. He refused a polygraph and never returned the girls' belongings. Later, he moved to a property about 11 miles from Broken Bow. Police interviewed him multiple times over the years, but he was never named as a suspect. Now that he is deceased, the truth may never be known. There was mention of a secondary person of interest, one of Joyce's boyfriends, but investigators reported very little follow-up on that lead. Neither sister's name, social security number, or birth certificate has been used since 1983. They simply vanished from the grid. Over the years, unconfirmed sightings were reported as far away as Arizona, but none of them were ever verified by authorities. Age progressions were released, showing the sisters at ages 43 and 44. In October 2008, the 25th anniversary was featured in the news. New images show how the sisters might look at 43 and 44. Meanwhile, the apartment at 333 East Brooks has been demolished. No physical evidence from the scene exists today. The case remains open with the Norman Police Department. Rosetta Cogburn-Ivy still advocates for the girls from Broken Bow. The suspect is dead, and the apartment is long gone. Two sisters sent to stay with a trusted family friend have been missing for over 42 years. A family friend who refused to answer any questions. An apartment that no longer exists, and two sisters who left behind every single thing they owned. But in our next case, two children vanished from an Alaskan cabin in the middle of the night while their mother was at a bar and water was boiling. These are the missing siblings, Scott and Amy Fandel. On the night of September 4th, 1978, two children were left alone at their family cabin on the Kenai Peninsula, 136 miles from Anchorage. Their mother and aunt dropped them off around 10 p.m. before heading back out to a local bar. When the women returned between 2 and 3 a.m. on September 5th, the cabin lights were off. That was highly unusual. The children were terrified of the dark and always left the lights on. Yet, their mother and aunt didn't check on them and just went to bed. The next afternoon, neighborhood children knocked and asked why Scott and Amy weren't at school. Only then did the family realize the children were gone. Scott Curtis Fandel was 13 years old with brown hair and blue eyes. He was 4 feet 11 inches tall and last seen wearing a striped tee and jeans. 8-year-old Amy Lee Fandel had blonde hair and brown eyes. She was 4 feet tall and wearing a red and blue vest over a sweater and striped jeans. Scott was Amy's half-brother. Amy's father, Roger Fandel, had raised Scott since he was 2 and considered him his own son. Their mother was Margaret Fandel. The cabin was remote, surrounded by thick forest, and the lock on the front door didn't even work. That evening, the kids visited their neighbors before going home. A passing neighbor saw the cabin lights on at 11:45 p.m. When Margaret and her sister returned from a bar called Good Time Charlie's between 2 and 3 in the morning, the lights were off. They did not check on the children and simply went to sleep. What they discovered the next day was deeply unsettling. They found evidence of an interrupted meal on the counter and stove. Macaroni, an open can of tomatoes, and a pot of water still warm. Something stopped them. Whatever happened occurred between 11:45 p.m., when the lights were on, and 2 a.m. when they were turned off. Bullet casings were found outside the cabin, though no one could determine if they were actually relevant to the disappearance. The cabin eventually burned to the ground, destroying any remaining physical evidence that might have solved the mystery. Who or what interrupted 2 children in a remote Alaskan cabin? The state troopers led the investigation under case number 78-33-0-3. Roger Fandel, Amy's father, had left the family and moved to Arizona 8 months before the children vanished in September. He was considered a suspect, but nothing was ever proven. He is reportedly deceased now. 2 carnival workers were questioned about their black sedan seen near the cabin. They claimed they were simply passing through the area. Some speculate that someone at the bar overheard the children would be home alone that night, but that has never been confirmed. In 1984, a retired investigator followed a tip about 2 children matching their descriptions who had moved to Page, Arizona. Like so many other leads, the information was never confirmed. The case is classified as a non-family abduction, though no suspect has ever been named publicly. Margaret eventually moved to Illinois. Both biological fathers are reportedly deceased. The case has been covered by several true crime podcasts focused on the last frontier. Legacy coverage includes a retrospective in the Anchorage Daily News on the 10th anniversary, back in September 1988. As of April 2026, the case remains with the Alaska State Troopers and is still unsolved after 47 years. No breakthroughs have occurred. The cabin is gone. But somewhere in the wilderness, the answer to what happened is still waiting. You and I are still looking for the truth of that September night. A pot of water on the stove in a dark house. Lights switched off in a cabin where the children feared the dark. 47 years of silence. But the final case holds a heartbreaking clue. In this case, the leading theory is that it was an accident, and the car they were riding in may still be. Hidden at the bottom of a reservoir. Julie and Timothy Guthrie. On Saturday, February 5th, 1977, a young mother left her home in White Plains, New York. You and I can imagine her driving 30 miles north to collect her children. It was a snowy day during a brutal, record-breaking winter that no one would forget. The father buckled the children into her white 1974 Ford Maverick and watched them drive away. They never returned to White Plains. That car was never found. Julianne Guthrie was 6 years old, 4 feet tall, with brown hair and blue eyes. She had strawberry birthmarks on her chin. Timothy Patrick Jr. was only 3 feet 3 inches tall, with brown hair and blue eyes. Their mother, Leslie Ann Locke Guthrie, was just 29 years old. She grew up in New York and attended college in Massachusetts before leaving school to be with Timothy Sr. Their marriage was struggling, and they had recently separated. Leslie was living with her mother while Timothy stayed in Katona. Around 1:30 p.m., Timothy Sr. secured the children in the car and watched as Leslie drove away. He later said, "I helped her put the kids in the car, and they drove off. And that was the last I saw them." Leslie's mother had lent her a pair of boots and $10 for gas, suggesting the car was low on fuel, and she had almost no money left on her. The drive from Katona back home should have taken about 45 minutes. They never arrived. Timothy Sr. didn't report them missing until the next evening, assuming Leslie had simply spent the night at her mother's house with the 2 children. That 28-hour gap before the alarm was raised remains one of the most painful details of this case. The Bedford police led the investigation, following leads across the entire country and even as far as Japan. Timothy Sr. hired a private investigator to help. No clothes or personal belongings had been packed for a trip. No bank withdrawals were made. There was zero indication that Leslie had planned to start a new life elsewhere. She had reportedly been reading about cults, and the family was under heavy stress. How does a mother with only $10 for gas and borrowed boots disappear with 2 children on a short drive? Today, you and I are looking at a theory of a tragic accident. Investigators believe the white Maverick with plate 636WNA may have gone into a local reservoir, like Cross River, perhaps Muscoot or Titticus, where icy roads and poor visibility made driving incredibly dangerous. Early investigators initially dismissed this idea, believing the ice on the local waterways was far too thick for a car to ever break through. But modern cold case experts have revisited the possibility, noting that ice isn't always frozen solid across every section. On the 45th anniversary, authorities released age-progressed images of what Julie, Timothy, and Leslie might look like today. The case was featured on local news and even a true crime series on Hulu called Missing, which aired an episode on the family. In May 2024, a non-profit dedicated to recovering submerged vehicles traveled to Westchester County to help with the search. They scanned the water for the Maverick, believing that everything in this mystery points to it being a simple accident. No vehicle was found during that search. Timothy Sr. remains alive as of 2024, but he has long since moved away from New York. Her obituary still listed Leslie as a survivor. Without a body, a mother simply couldn't bring herself to say goodbye to her daughter. This cold case remains open with the Bedford police. No confirmed discovery or resolution has ever been reported. A mother and her 2 young children drove away on a snowy afternoon 49 years ago, and their car has never been seen again. The reservoir that holds the answers hasn't given them up. You and I can only hope that the truth surfaces for the family soon. Thanks for watching.